Hi, it's Katie. Welcome to the Real Connections module. So this is the last module and definitely the one that brings you fulfillment and meaning and just a sense that Twitter is a space for you to grow and get to know and meet new people. So yeah, I'd like to start off by saying Twitter is full of people who are real people. So I know obviously there are bots, but this idea that we're anonymous online and that people don't get to know us and that we're not tweeting to real people, we're tweeting to air is just a misconception. There are people with beating hearts and a breathing soul on the other side of a tweet, and we can impact how people feel, how people experience themselves, and how people experience the world. And also, we can create art through writing. And if you're a visual artist, through drawing or sculpting or painting. And just know that there's so many possibilities and that we impact people with who we are. And this module is really about reminding you that these are real people. Um, so, yeah, what you can do to protect these people in the community is so important for you to be thoughtful and for you to have follow through when you say you're going to do something and then do it. So, yeah, it's really important to build trust with people. And in building trust, you get to know people. And it's so powerful to know that you're not alone, to know specifically if you're a writer on the writing journey, to kind of like ask questions to other writers and see what their perspective is and understand the world from someone else's eyes. So I'll go through some of this, and hopefully by the end of this, you have a feeling that you can connect with people on a deeper level. So, the first thing I would just encourage you to do is you can take a picture of this and tweet at me. So, if you have to pause it, take a picture and tweet at Katie Moran. So, it's at KatieEMorann. If you found me on Twitter, then you probably already know my username. So yeah, it'll come up. And I'd love to follow you and get to know you. And again, just make those real connections, which is just so powerful, specifically in this digital age of social media. So, some of the ways I've grown to know people is I've coached a bunch of people from Twitter, and being on a Zoom call and getting to know what people are struggling with and where people are growing is a really special thing. So, if you haven't booked your 30-minute clarity call, go ahead and do that. It's on the one pager and you can download that. So, yeah, just reminding you that you can get to know people. So, it's not this place that's anonymous and hateful and scary. It can be a safe space, specifically if you put in those pockets of protection and you build on what's important to you and what's interesting to you and you have your voice. So again, really reinforcing every module we went through to get here. Um, so that you can put yourself out there, and I encourage you to look at the bonus from Sahar Beb, putting yourself out there, and really take chances. So, here are some of the ways that you can get to know people and make real connections. So, interviews. So, this is something that I did. I started a poetry platform and I interviewed poets. And on my company page, I interviewed advocates and activists. And it was just such a powerful experience to get to know people. So, when I started, I was actually suicidal, and interviewing poets, it was the best part of my week. I would feel just like I really felt my soul that day, that I would put the features together and I would read every line, and it was so transformational for me, and it gave me so much hope, and it reminded me that I wasn't alone. So, if you could find a way to interview people, again, this is a reminder from Build Your Platform. So, if you're looking for a free way to interview people, There's a Zoom that's free, and you could put it up on YouTube or a podcast. Anchor is a free podcasting platform. And then you could also use WordPress and do, if you might not feel comfortable talking to someone face to face, you can start small, and don't be afraid to start small by doing an over email interview. And you can put that on WordPress, which is a free platform that's for blogging. I've done interviews where I've been interviewed by people who are on WordPress, and I think it's incredible. It's a wonderful thing. Um, and then kind of like you can get to know people in these kind of like audio places. So kind of like looking at people across platforms. So if an example would be on Clubhouse. Sarah's going to talk a lot about Clubhouse, but there's rooms in Clubhouse. There's rooms in Facebook. So if you're connecting with people on Facebook, and then Twitter Spaces is probably the most important one. So Twitter Spaces is an audio platform on the Twitter app. You can listen in on desktop, but you actually need to go on a mobile device to have audio, to have your mic work. If your mic isn't working, reinstall the app and then it should be working. Again, there's so many updates that you have to make sure you're keeping track of the updates and that you are constantly updating your technology so that you can use the features that are newly introduced. Yeah, so this idea of spaces, I recently did a mental health space, and I'm doing another mental health space that's coming up. And it's just so incredible to kind of like see people's profile and see what they're about and understand their voice, and then to actually like hear their voice and to get to know them on such a deeper level. Even if you're just listening into a space, it could be a great way to kind of like gain followers who are interested in the same content as you. So I sometimes go to spaces and say it's a poetry space. I follow the poets and I follow the people who are there. I check out their profiles. I see if it's someone that's a writer, a poet. Those are the people I like to follow. And I follow them if they have content that is engaging and interesting to me, I will follow them. And a lot of the times people will follow you back if your content is interesting and engaging, and you have a clear bio of who you are and what you do or what you put out in the world. So again, don't be afraid to hop on a Twitter space. You don't have to raise your hand and speak. You can use the reactions to show people that you're listening and that you're engaged. And as someone who has hosted Twitter spaces before and has been a speaker, it's so meaningful when you say something from the heart and then someone sends a heart and reacts with a heart, or if someone claps, like it just reminds you that you're not alone and that you're not just talking to air. There's someone on the other side of the audio track, and that it's this kind of like interaction and this back and forth, because meaning really comes from that purpose that we feel when we can empower another person, or when we feel empowered by the presence of other people. So just reminding yourself that on Twitter, you get the experience that you give out. And if you are uplifting and you have a clear voice, other people will react to that in a certain way that you can connect with them. And specifically, if they have like a similar interest, you can connect on interest. So yeah, like for instance, I would say I've seen hate and harassment on Twitter before, and I feel very comfortable blocking people. I usually wait until I felt like they've been inappropriate more than one time. If it's like something super inappropriate, I will block them on the first time. If someone's a bot, sometimes I'll block them. If someone has honestly porn, I will block a porn site, because the last thing you need is someone posting a pornographic photo on one of your tweets or your images. So I personally block people who are posting porn or nudity. And again, that's personal preference. But I would say if you're growing and you want your presence to be professional, you probably don't want people spamming you with porn. So again, I mean, connecting with people who have a clear voice, who are who they say they are. So again, looking at someone across platforms, making sure they're not a scammer, and taking care of yourself online. So I think in the writing community, it's really easy to kind of like verify that people are who they say they are, because they'll have links to their books, they'll have links with pictures of who they are, they'll have websites. You'll see them doing features, they'll be on Twitter Spaces, and you'll hear their audio, which if they have a YouTube channel, you can see that with their face and their voice that it's the same person. So again, be smart. So don't fall for scammers. Specifically, a very common scam is for a man to say that he has children and he's widowed, and that he'll try to like date you, and then he'll start asking you to send money. There's a great episode on the Red Table Talk where this happens, and they kind of like talk about scammers. So if you are interested in protecting yourself online, look at the Red Table Talk when they talk about scamming, because it's so important to protect yourself online. And then we'll talk about protecting your community. So sometimes we have a guilt when we block people. And again, we should block people for the sake of protecting the community. I personally blocked someone who um, was sending me inappropriate emails, and sending me, also someone who sent me like offensive emails. And again, it's important to protect yourself, but also protect other people, because if someone is willing to be inappropriate with me, they could be inappropriate with someone who follows me. And for instance, this one person, I actually blocked because they kind of put something that was just rude on a comment that was from a feature of someone who was underage. And I just kind of like felt like, this person is really excited about being featured. We got their parents' consent, and they are being highlighted, and it's really a beautiful moment for them. And then they have this comment that is just rude and inconsiderate. And, honestly, a really big problem with people being rude. A lot of times you'll see it with people who have very few followers, and it's because they have this energy and this kind of like they're not being nice to people. So why would someone follow them? You know what I mean? So it's very common to see people with a low follower count commenting on things in a very negative or polarizing or offensive way. And again, I remember I was kind of like really offended. Someone said something that was just rude to me. And I thought, like, I think it was when I was at like 10,000 followers or something. And I thought, this comment is rude. And the only reason that 10,000 people are going to see it is because I have 10,000 followers, and that they're utilizing my platform to spread hate, harassment, offensiveness. And, that's kind of like why I think it's important that we don't think that blocking someone is a selfish act. Sometimes we do it to protect their platform. And again, when I talk about this, I don't talk about just blocking people because they disagree with you. I'm talking about blocking people who are inappropriate, who bring down your community, who are rude, offensive. And I know if you personally don't connect with a lot of people who are like younger, you might be like, okay, it's fine. But I think if you connect with people who are younger, if you connect with people who are a vulnerable population that might be really not in the place to hear harsh criticism, then you have to be aware of that, and you have to try to protect your community and the members of it. So that's why it's always so important to be following the people who follow you, who are part of the community, because you really have to see what people are putting out there. If someone is saying about how they're depressed and they feel so alone, obviously if they comment on one of your posts and then someone comments something rude on their post, that's something that might not be what they need to hear at that moment. And in blocking people who have already offended other people with things that are out of line and inappropriate, then you're actually doing a service to your community. So again, do not discredit this idea of protecting your community through blocking people. Do not feel guilty about blocking people. Again, keep people who are disagreeing with you, who are challenging you in positive and constructive ways that are forcing you to be a better version of yourself. But you don't have to put up with any hate, any online harassment. Again, the internet is a place where people can feel like they're anonymous and can feel like the screen is protecting them so they can say whatever they want without any repercussions. Blocking them is the perfect repercussion so that they cannot do it to someone who is investing in you. And that's in terms of someone following you, someone engaging with your content, someone who is buying from you, someone who is a client of yours. Um, Again, not everyone has businesses, but if you're a writer, you'll have eventually readers, and it's important that your readers feel like they can be on your page without kind of like people poisoning them with just like their spite and hate and yeah. So blocking people might not be the right step for everyone, and I think growing to your first 10,000, you do want kind of the purity in that community. So I would say, I would advise you, if someone is harassing you, if someone is making inappropriate sexual comments, definitely block them. Your mental health comes before anything else, and just recognize that and do not feel guilt for it. So this idea of DMing people relevant content. So um, if someone has a post and they say something that you feel like you can add value to by saying something, I would suggest commenting. You don't have to take things to DM initially, but if you're commenting back and forth and things get personal, you can DM someone and say, I wasn't comfortable publicly tweeting this, but I just wanted to tell you that blah 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 blah. That makes sense. I would say do not ever DM someone to hit on them. Do not ever DM someone to be aggressive. Do not ever DM someone anything that is rude, that is unkind. Again, people will put in their bios DM for business only or no DMs. Respect what people have in their bios. If someone says no DMs, you can publicly tweet at them. I wanted to say sometimes people for features, they'll have no DMs in their bio and they won't have their DMs open. And then I'll just tweet at them, oh, your DMs aren't open. How would you like me to send this to you? A lot of the times, people don't want to put their emails publicly, but they will open their DMs to have a conversation, specifically if it's like featuring them. Which, again, if you're in this course, you probably have learned a lot about featuring people. So it might be something that you feel you are comfortable doing and that you're capable of doing. So again, I would say in terms of interviewing people and doing features, be aware that sometimes when you don't have a following, if you don't have a lot of content out there, people might ignore you. At first, when I started, people really ignored me. I was I was really ignored by a lot of people, and it really took having a lot of content on my poetry platform, engaging with people, and gaining followers to actually be able to have features. And also, I would engage with people so much that they felt like they know me, so that they felt comfortable being featured. Again, being featured is something that's beautiful. I would encourage you to, if you are looking for someone to answer you and be featured, just email me and say you're in this course, and say you'd love to interview me. Again, just let me know. But yeah, the more people you get, the more people will respond. It's really part of the momentum. So again, though, starting small and starting from ground zero is really something that is not to be afraid of. Like, don't be afraid of that. Don't be ashamed of that. Don't be ashamed of having fewer followers than someone. It's all really about like gaining momentum. And also, when you get followers, like, don't judge people for not having followers. It's something that you just have to be conscious of. And I would say sometimes I do features with people who don't really have a lot of followers, and sometimes those are features that get a lot of views because they have a lot of friends on other platforms. So again, I know people who have so many followers on other platforms that don't have a lot of followers on Twitter, and it's very common. It doesn't say anything about them. Obviously, they could have viral content on another platform and then not have any followers on Twitter. And that's all part of the process. Every platform's different. It's really about picking your platform. And if you're a writer, I would highly suggest Twitter, because that is definitely a word-based platform. And again, if you're very comfortable with words, don't feel shy in doing an audio space, because you can really get to know people and it could be a really beautiful experience. So if you follow me, check out if there's a space. And usually there's like a time where we let people like raise their hand and stuff. So you can wait till the end and then raise your hand, and you can just say that you took this course and that you just wanted to put yourself out there. Say whatever's on your heart. So yeah, just this idea that we are in control of what we put out there, and that it can impact other people, and that these people are real and they are just as real as we are. And we get to decide how we show up and put intention into that. So the next thing I want to move on to is respond to what people are putting out there. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. They'll be like, oh, I don't know why I'm not getting followers. And they aren't following anyone in their niche. They're not retweeting people. They're not quote tweeting people. And they're not actually engaging with the real people who are part of the community. So again, really know your community, know your niche. And I would say the most underrated thing is quote tweeting within the niche. So if you're on leadership, quote tweet Simon Sinek. If you're in social media marketing, quote tweet Gary Vee. And then also don't feel uncomfortable retweeting people. But again, it's really that quote tweet where people are going to get to know you. They're going to get to know your opinion. And that's going to be the deciding factor on whether or not someone wants to follow you. So remember, your content isn't for everyone. And when we try to be everything for everyone, we become nothing to no one. I love that quote, and it's just something that is just so powerful to recognize. So kind of like narrow down, know who you're speaking to, know your ideal follower, and speak from your heart to that person. And again, you don't have to compromise your values. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable doing. Just be who you are and show up in service of others. So again, that quote tweet, whatever your opinion is on what you're retweeting, it's something that someone can find value out of. And again, I would say don't spread hate. Don't be too harsh. People really want to see that you're someone they can trust. And I would say 100%, you really can't trust someone who is unkind. You can't trust them with your well-being. And I would say anyone who disagrees with that is someone who is probably having difficulty right now in their life with boundaries, people pleasing, and they might even be depressed because they're letting other people rule their lives with anything. So just a reminder that your well-being can be connected to the way people treat you. You can do a lot of work so that you're not impacted by the way people treat you, but at the end of the day, how people treat you has an impact on you. And again, I wouldn't say that I trust anyone who's unkind, because how can you trust them with your well-being? You might trust them with their honesty, but that's not with your well-being. So this idea that your well-being is at the center of everything. If you're not feeling well, you won't be able to show up for others because you need to take care of yourself. And I would say if you're in that space, definitely do a digital detox. I think a lot of the times people really consume on social media and they'll scroll and just read people's content, and they'll be following a bunch of people who are polarizing, who they don't agree with, that they just want to see what these people are saying. And I would tell you, immediately unfollow those people. Make Twitter a safe space that you can follow people who are serving others, follow people who are like-minded, and you can see people's tweets that are viral, but I would say you want to be able to show up in service of other people. Unfollow anyone who is um, destroying your peace or your mental health or your well-being, because it has so much of an impact on all the areas of your life. And this really is about having enough strength to say that someone can impact you in a way that you get to decide how you react. So again, unfollowing people is not something to be afraid of. I unfollowed someone's professional account one time, and I didn't unfollow their personal account. And they said, "Oh, if you're gonna unfollow my company account, why don't you as well do it, why don't you do it right and unfollow my personal account?" And I was just kind of like thinking, like, who even knows who unfollows them? You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, honestly, if you're tracking who unfollows you, you're really not there to serve others, because your content can reach people who are not following you. Your content will probably be public if you're trying to grow on Twitter. I wouldn't recommend keeping it private. And just this concept that someone kind of like has this sense that they're entitled to my follow is something that just is a little toxic. And again, their personal page had a lot of stuff that was like very much within the writing community. It was constructive, and it was all things that I was interested in seeing. So I was like thinking to myself, like, do they look at their own timeline because their company page just had this negative feel to it? They would have negative comments. It was a little more rude. And like, again, I don't have anything against people who are honest and people who are critical, but I do have a desire to have peace of mind, and anyone who disrupts my peace with something that is like super negative is something that I don't feel uncomfortable to unfollow. Um, so just again, like, I didn't even unfollow them because it's like it didn't impact me. It wasn't something like I thought their personal account was something that I was interested in following. So I also was on vacation at the time, so it kind of took me off my feet. And I was just kind of thinking, like, how did this person even realize I unfollowed them? And again, I would advise you not to track people unfollowing you. It's not beneficial to your mental health or your well-being or your state of mind. So again, think about growing and building momentum and how you can grow and how you can make real connections. Because if you're making real connections, someone will probably not unfollow you. And if it's a real connection, or if your content is uplifting and valuable and in service of others, they will refollow you. I recently had someone refollow me on Instagram when I started making uplifting videos. And, I didn't even know they unfollowed me. And honestly, I just thought it was a win that they followed me back because my content changed, and they were for it. So again, if people unfollow you, you can take it as a sign that maybe you're not serving the community, or at least you weren't serving them. And again, it's not really about whether or not someone likes you. I followed that person's personal account, but I didn't follow their company page because it was two different voices. They were two different voices. And one I felt was in service of the community, and the other one I felt was not serving anyone. I felt like it was self-serving. And again, for a company to be self-serving, it's not something that I feel like I should be invested in, because I do feel more comfortable following real people than I do following company pages. So it is something to be aware of, that when you're growing, that you will gain more momentum as a personal brand than actual brands. So it takes different things. Like personal brands, I would say is something that people are more interested in because they want to see the person behind it. And I would say if you have a professional brand, again, keep it personal too. Um, and like show things you're working on, stuff like that. Again, so know who you're comfortable following and be real with yourself and prioritize your well-being. So this next thing is show personality and be respectful. Use hashtags to connect with community. So I would say if you're at 100 followers, first thing you can do, if you're a writer, a writer's list. Hashtag blogs, hashtag links, hashtag website, hashtag author, hashtag writing community, hashtag writer's list. Again, these hashtags are something that can bring you to a wider audience, but I would say do not rely on hashtags. Your tweets should really be of substance, and how you can gain momentum is of people who have larger followings, liking your tweets, commenting on your tweets, which will happen in time as you grow and as people get to know you. So again, if you're serving the community will put energy into you. They will put energy into what you're doing, because you have that momentum, because people trust you. Again, thinking about it, think about what can you do to show people that you care, because there's kind of like, I think in terms of self-serving tweets, sometimes we can really prop ourselves up. We can really make ourselves bigger in our minds than we are. And not saying that well, actually, I would say like there needs to be a level of humility so that you don't make it about trying to polarize people to gain more followers. You don't make it about being this kind of like huge personality so people just follow you because you just have the right energy. Again, it's really not about any of that. And everyone who has followers has systems in place. They have habits that help them grow. I would say, for instance, people with millions of followers, they have PR teams. They have people who sometimes people who are even managing their accounts and tweeting for them, social media managers, all these things. So again, don't think that it's something to be ashamed of if you have a few thousand followers or a few hundred followers. Like people who have millions of followers are doing different things that are systems based, and again, like it's at scale. So do not compare yourself to someone who has millions of followers. Do not compare yourself in the beginning to someone who has hundreds of thousands of followers. Again, we all are starting from the same place, and that's zero. So some people might have other platforms where they have people who are very invested in them so that they can have followers transfer over. I would say it's not easy to have followers transfer over. A lot of times people who get followers fast, it's through knowing people who have a lot of followers and those people tweeting at them and boosting their content and retweeting their content. So again, just know that it is something that it's like there's an algorithm, and that it also is public. So I would say sometimes we have a voice, and then sometimes the content we consume is not in our voice. And usually this will impact our mental health. So our voice, content we consume, mental health is in the middle of this. So I would say if you are consuming content that is not in your voice, that does not serve you, immediately unfollow them and do not have any regrets. You can refollow someone if someone wonders why you unfollowed them and refollowed them. Like you could have a personal conversation with them if they really care that much. Again, like a lot of times if you unfollow someone, it's really rare that you'll refollow them. Um, but again, just make sure you know what's healthy for you and what's good for your well-being, and be conscious that you're a real person too. You're not just this robot who's flying through scrolling and is unaffected by content. You're a real person. You have a heart, you have emotions, you have feelings, and you get to decide what kind of place Twitter will be for you by who you follow, who you unfollow, who you block, who you retweet, who you quote tweet, who what spaces you go to, who you connect with, who you tweet at. All of it is a part of who you are. And again, make sure that you're doing things that are empowering to you, that are uplifting you, that are uplifting others, that are in service to other people. And trust yourself when you're growing online. And also be gentle with yourself. Try not to judge yourself. Definitely do not judge other people. And I would say definitely do not judge yourself. You could always actually ask yourself how you can be more effective. You could always ask yourself, how can you gain more followers? How can you beat the algorithm? And, it's good to push yourself and challenge yourself, but not at the expense of your mental health. Know that your mental health and well being always comes first because you are a real person and you need to connect with your own self to be a person who can serve others. Again, think about this idea. So, some of us pour from an empty cup. So, where we need to be pouring from is really not pouring at all. It's we give people the overflow. So, our cup is overflowing, and that's what drips into other people's cup. So, have that connection with yourself first. So, things I do that help me have that connection with myself is I unfollow things that are unhealthy for me. I block people who cross the line with me or are inappropriate or are negative toward my mental health. And I also make sure I take care of myself in my daily life. I keep people around who are positive and who help me process my own emotions. And I give myself time and space to process. And I also rest when I need rest. And I push myself when I feel capable of pushing myself. And the more you rest, the more you will feel capable of pushing yourself. And again, not having judgment, because judgment is an energetic frequency and that takes away from your capacity to do other things. So if you're putting energy toward your fear, if you're investing in your fear, you'll only get more of it. And if you are pushing toward the things you want, your desires, your milestones, your goals, your wins, you will gain the momentum there. So again, your momentum comes where you put it. So your momentum comes from the energy you put in. And if you're putting energy into your fear, you'll get momentum based on fear. So you'll get more fear. If you put momentum in your wins, you'll get more wins. So again, just know your energy goes and flows, and that's where your momentum comes from. So again, we need to have our own energy in the right space and in a way that we have a sense of well-being and peace of mind so that we can give that to other people through our service to them and to the community. So I'll kind of like give you an example where I realized the importance of real connections. So I had been featuring poets and activists and advocates maybe for a few months. And I just had a really sad day and I was struggling. And I just tweeted something about how I wasn't having the best day. That's almost gonna make me cry. But yeah, I was having a bad day and I tweeted it, and like a bunch of people who I featured just kind of like said some stuff that was really uplifting and they wished that I had a better day. And it seems so small, but in that time, like the interactions I was having that were uplifting meant so much to me, and they meant I could hold on, and they gave me a sense of purpose. And I'm not saying like you should seek validation in your connections with other people, but I'm saying fulfillment comes from your connection with other people. And sometimes you can be there to lift someone else's spirit, but sometimes your community will lift your spirit. And sometimes it's through being honest about how you're feeling and receiving comments or DMs from people. And sometimes it's through just following the people who uplift you so that you can scroll and make your day better through scrolling. And again, I'm not saying mindlessly scrolling, I'm saying having a feed that is powerful, uplifting, impactful, and then going through it. And if you're a little bit down, you have the motivation to keep going, you have the motivation to know you're not alone, and you have the inspiration to know that you can make a difference too. And I think a lot of the times people say the secret to growing is consistency. And I really would like to challenge that idea and tell you that the secret to growing is not consistency, it's real connection. Because if you tell yourself, I'm going to be consistent every day for a year, you'll feel like you don't want to do it. And you might not, because if you're not showing up for other people, there's really no purpose for you to just tweet to yourself. Um, and you'll give up. Like, honestly, if you're not having connections, it's the fastest way to give up on what you're doing. And if you're not making a difference, then it's really easy to just think that it's not something worth doing. So I would say real connections is a secret, because when you are connected with people, you want to serve them, you want to show up for them. If you have a little spare time, you will go see how people are doing, what their days are like. You will tweet things like sending love if you want to actually send love to people. And I think it's just so important to realize that real connections are something that's fulfilling and something that is motivation to keep going and to show up and to serve others. So if you feel like your service isn't reaching anyone, ask yourself if you're making those connections. If you're constantly tweeting and you're feeling it's of service to others, then ask yourself, are you responding to other people who are tweeting? Are you engaging with other people's content? Because it's so important that you are. And it's really those connections that are the reason you show up. So I'll give you an example. I was going through so much harassment online that I just really didn't want to post. I was going through a lot in my life, and I was like, I didn't want to post. So maybe I didn't post for like a week, and someone reached out to me who I had collaborated with on a poem. And it was just, it was meaningful to me, because I felt like this person saw a part of me that is something that is so raw and only expressed through art. And they asked how I was doing, and they said they missed hearing from me, they missed my content. And that's when I realized that it's not about having consistency for the sake of growing. It's about showing up for the people you have connections with, because they will hold you accountable, they will ask you how you are, they will give you back that energy if you feel like you are dwindling with that energy. And again, consistency is something that's only possible when you feel like you're connecting with people. um you can hold yourself accountable to consistency, but I'm telling you that it's not a motivator and a driving force. What will keep you consistent is having people you're connecting with, knowing you're making a difference, knowing you're impacting people, knowing that someone is going to read your tweet and either have a better day, or know that they have the capacity within themselves to change their circumstance. So again, just remind yourself that you get to be who you want to be when you show up, and that other people are interacting with this. So other people are experiencing how you show up. So show up for yourself, show up for others, and understand just where that comes from. And if you need to journal things that are hard for you, reach out to me, schedule a call, a coaching call, a creativity chat, things like that. Email me or DM me. Yeah, and you can tweet this so that I know to follow you. Yeah, and make sure you get that social media audit, that Twitter audit. So wishing you a wonderful time growing on Twitter.